Cookies, let's talk about these players. Let's talk about these teams, because we got to get everyone introduced. Even the loyal fans are going to be reintroduced to these new teams, new names. And of course, the first one on the docket today is going to be Gaimin Gladiators, and they are taking on Aqualix. There is a lot of familiarity between these two teams. We've seen them in different incarnations before. But Cookies, let's start on the side of Gaimin Gladiators.
Right, so Gaimin Gladiators, I love that name. Y'all gonna love the tag, and y'all gonna love the players. Funny thing is, Arrow, if you remember when he first came into Challenge League, he was tagged up with the GG as well. That's from Guidance Gaming. He's on the Gaimin Gladiators now. I think he's gonna be. I know our highlight player is Beastly, and Beastly's like one of the greatest support players in the history of Challenger. But Arrow's also he won. He was tops in all sorts of categories in stage 3. He's kind of an underrated one going into this year. It's a lot of the people that, you know, if you look at those stats, you look at the numbers from 2021, a lot of those guys are in the NAL, and Arrow's kind of chilling on this team. Keep a lookout for Arrow. Jolton's back. If y'all missed Jolton, he kind of, you know, he struggled on the hard support roles, right? He struggled so much that my screen is shaking with every move. But Quartz and Sykes, I think those two as well. Going to be an amazing frag duo for this team. And yeah, this team, again, it seems a lot of people are talking LSR. Did I say it right? LSR?
No, LSR. Yes.
Thank you, T-Daps. LSR. You know, everybody's talking about teams like that and whatnot, but look out for the Gaimin Gladiators.
We've got tons of time to learn the names of the teams and the players. Connor, we got some fan favorites coming up right here on Aqualix. This is a roster that everyone should be pretty familiar with if you were with us last year.
Yeah, it feels like it's like the 19th iteration of Aqualix. They always like making changes, and they like giving new players chances, just like Slimy Nick down at the bottom. He's a player that I don't have a lot of experience with, but through the murmurings of other teams scrimming and stuff like that, apparently he's nasty. So with a name like Slimy Nick, I guess you have to be pretty dang good, and hopefully he can come out and really embody the Gasher system, which apparently is returning. You still got Afer and Psychosis coming in from Panic Gaming, two very, very good players on the side of Aqualix, with Gasher, the man that we just know and is synonymous with the Aqualix brand, as well as Rice coming up from T3, hopefully going to prove himself.
Now, as much as we love to gas these players up and talk about how amazing they are, Cookies, at times, we do have to be critical of them.
Yes, let's be critical. Let's talk about a Gaimin Gladiator.
Let's speak critically.
Let's get critical. All right. Connor, listen, before we started the stream, I was like, should we delete the Legasher? But
No,
we're not. Because you know what? Here's the thing, right? And I know you're going to agree with me, because this was your opinion in the first place. Gasher's teams, they always seem to go a little too far, right? With the aggression and whatnot. That's where the Legasher system comes from. And I don't know, maybe in the new meta it makes sense. Maybe we're moving towards a faster paced siege, but I feel like we've been saying that forever, and we're trying to justify it, maybe defending the system.
Maybe just a little bit, but the biggest thing about the Gasher system is, sure, it can have success. You can beat any team with the Legasher system, but it's a real big double-edged sword, because you can also lose to any team. In a best-of-1 format like we have, that's really, really scary.
Yeah, you get one shot, and that can be over real quick. Now, between these two teams, let's move over, Connor, to your side. Let's talk a bit about Aqualix and that Legasher system, or lack thereof. Maybe they're going to clean things up a little bit.
Yeah, for the side of Aqualix, they always have done a really good job at targeting players and really kind of getting up in the bits and finding themselves in unpredictable spots, like hitting a maneuver to get 3 players inside of sight going against a smoke on his lonesome when you don't expect it. And that's exactly what they're going to have to do, because like it or not, I love Beastly, I love Bexdog, but he is the weakest link from a mechanical skill aspect on the side of Gaimin Gladiators. So if Aqualix are going to go aggressive, they're going to go for the knees, they're going to go right into the core of the team, I think they'll find a lot of success.
Cookies, do you think we're going to see much Finka out of these guys this year?
You know, the funny thing about the Finka, yes, of course. Finka
Yes,
has like
okay, good.
99.99.
That was the answer I was looking for.
The thing is, they were like the first team to start bringing Finka. Like back when they were bringing it was a meme. Now it's like LMG
It's real.
this, LMG that.
It's
like,
very real
but
now.
I guess talk about that second point. That's one thing we haven't really dug into yet, because we haven't got to the map ban screen yet. But when we get there, and we're going to talk about that more with Aqualix as the stage goes on, that's been their issue like forever, is they play like 3 or 4 maps with that crazy style, and then when you take them off those maps, it gets a little ugly. So maybe they can take advantage of a new map like Skyscraper or something like that. And
I
they
was
can-
thinking mainly theme park.
Yeah, I
would
mean,
be a
you
very
think so
good
for
gasher
Gasher's
map.
team? I don't know. I haven't seen theme park in a minute. I don't know. I feel like that map doesn't favor
Well,
people.
I think it's important that we find out Cookies. I know how much you love talking about the map vetoes, and we're going to get into it. But please try to get Connor in a little bit here, because I know that you love going off about your maps.
Connor, what'd you just say? What were you just talking
Yeah,
about?
they immediately ban it.
Yeah.
Makes me sad.
Yeah, insta banned. Gasher, I just knew that was not happening. Okay, Cafe was one of those maps that Aqualix does well on. Insta. Bank being banned by, I mean, that's honestly not a good sign. I just talked about Aqualix needed to expand it. They've banned 2 of the more complex maps out of the gate. Border being banned by the Gladiators. I don't know if we could. Are we gonna always say Gaimin Gladiators? Are we just gonna say Gladiators? I'm gonna start saying Gladiators.
I was gonna start saying Gaimin.
Gaimin. I mean, they're not gaming on border, because again, that's a map where I'm just saying you don't want to play against A4 on border. I can imagine that's not a fun situation, and they're gonna ban on Skyscraper too. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Connor? What are your thoughts on the new Skyscraper and how? I don't know. I mean, the old one you could hop out on people and get crazy. What about the new one?
I feel like it's going to be a very similar map to Chalet with a lot of shield extended setups, but just like Chalet, it's also not going to be in this pool, so we don't really have to talk about it that much. That leaves us to Villa and Clubhouse, 2 very well-established maps in the pool, and we're going to be seeing the Gasher system on the most default map currently in competitive, Clubhouse. So, from a map ban perspective, I think that Aqualix probably got what they wanted. But if there's just enough innovation and sort of creative flair thrown in by Gaimin Gladiators, especially on the defensive side, they might be able to find some success.
I'll tell you this, it wouldn't be a CL season if we weren't starting off with Clubhouse. We have all these new exciting options in the map pool, and where do we go? But none other. The tried and true Clubhouse. Let's throw the predictions up on screen. I'm not going to lie here, guys. I was the last one to pick, and I kind of, as you look through today's predictions and tomorrow's predictions, I was looking at other people's notes just a little bit because I need a refresher here. Connor, I'll start with you. Gaimin Gladiators, they seem to be the front runners. Why is that?
These are a bunch of players that have had a lot of success on separate rosters, as well as some already known connections like Jolton with Beastly. And overall, it's a team that on paper just looks almost too big to fail. Sykes, he's finally coming in. He's probably going to be my player to watch on this roster because for once he finally has a bona fide and pedigreed IGL in the form of Beastly, also with Jolton shot calling courts. He's not really going to have enough of that stress that he saw on one shot with him also shot calling in conjunction with Kilo. Now he just gets to sit back and gun. That's going to be nice. I think his performance will also boost forward on this roster with Arrow, who we already know can frag and just play amazing at a Challenger League level.
And just before we get into it, Cookies, in your mind, what leaves Aqualix lacking in this matchup?
Funny thing is, this map, a high key, mid key, Brimstone, I wanted to change my vote there.
I thought about changing it too.
Because I don't know how in the world we got to Club, but we did. It seemed like Gaimin Gladiators banned out all the right maps, all the basic ones. And that last little one, I don't know. But we're going to Clubhouse, and that honestly favors Gasher's team a little bit. It's like we've talked about, it's basic. It's been in the pool for like 4 years at this point. And the way that it is, I don't know. Well, Gladiators might struggle.
Not only did they get Clubhouse, but they may have also gotten the fabled curse of the predictions. We all went in on Gaimin Gladiators, so who knows what's going to happen here. But let's throw it to your casters. You know them well. It's Crow and Jay's Wills. They're going to take it away right now.
Hello, everyone. We're back. I am Harrison, as always, joined by my lovely friend Jonah, and I hope you all are just as excited to get a new year of Challenger League underway, because starting with Gaimin Gladiators versus Aqualix, these are 2 teams who, have not necessarily been around for a while. Aqualix had a whole rebuild, but a lot of these players are very experienced.
Harrison, I am so freaking excited to get started. We've got a fantastic matchup on our hands to kick things off. You said it. We've got some experienced players. We've got some newer players. We've got just a great CL matchup. to kick off the year. I can't believe that. Kicking off 2022 with a matchup like this. And like our analyst desk said, I know they were talking a lot about the changes to the format, all these new teams, these new faces that we have, but we would be remiss if we did not talk a lot today about all the new changes we've got to the game itself. We've got all these new maps. We've got changes with these operators. We've got Thorn being introduced into the mix here. We've got a lot to talk about, and of course, we've got our operator bans to start off the night. This is where I think things are going to stay relatively consistent to what we've seen in the last seasons, in the last year, because teams aren't quite branching out too much. I mean, you look at these bans and it screams Clubhouse. You've got your Maverick and your Hibana, the double hard breach taken off the board. On the defensive side, you've got those Electro Claws removed with the Kaid ban, and of course the Valkyrie with those black eye cameras. She can be powerful on every single map. Clubhouse is no exception, so these teams are not going to want to deal with her and her intel power at all.
And it looks like Aqualix might be trolling us a little bit in the beginning of the operator select phase because oh wow, what the hell? Because of course, excuse me, there's no more sixth pick. There's no more reveal phase. So you don't get to take a peek at your opponent's operators before you load into the lobby. Now, instead, while the defenders, their lineups aren't revealed, so they have to stay static with these 5 no matter what, Aqualix can go ahead, drone into the building. If they can get a drone in sight, sure, they might sacrifice that utility, but they'll have a better understanding of who the defense is bringing, and they can swap out any of their attackers. As you can see, Slimy Nick, who I believe just wants to be referred to as Nick, so if we just call him Nick, we are referring to ATKSlime.AQ, is going to show us that right now. Monty to ace the rest of the team who are on those lesser played operators will soon follow suit, and we're left from what was probably the craziest team comp I've seen in the last year of T2 to now painfully standard. Interesting that they're still bringing the Thatcher, though. I really thought the Cade ban was going to alleviate that Thatcher pick, but it seems like Aqualix still want to stick it just in case.
Like you said, though, with the attacker repick, I think we're going to see a lot of teams just picking some pretty crazy operators just right off the bat. Really, because it doesn't matter anymore. You get into the prep phase, that is where all of you can potentially choose, again, whatever attacker you want to bring into the mix. You can be aided by some intel, by that drone work as you work those drones into the building. You can see a particular setup. You can say, okay, I need this piece of utility to deny it, and that's how you bring a certain attacker or another. But speaking of, we already have one of those attackers, and a big player at that, taken off the board within the first 40 seconds. It is Psychosis, the Zofia, the first player to fall on the side of Aqualix. It's going to be Arrow on the Mozzie, going for a little roam here on the gym and bedroom side to claim the opening pick through the hatch. He'll reposition and join Jolton over in construction, because Aqualix, they are really looking to get this clear going, and a clear that is now working beautifully thanks to Rice, and a couple of nice headshots there. Good by Arrow, good by Jolton. This clear is off to a fantastic start.
Beautiful stuff, but ooh, Sykes will clap back. The man who went in and looked like he was going to save the round for the attack ended up getting refragged, but Afer is there on the main stairs cut off. So what was a very extended roam from Gaimin Gladiators worked for 2, but it cost them 3 lives, and honestly, I don't think the amount of time they wasted was really all that worth it. On average, that was 30 seconds per operator. Not what you're really looking for these roamers. Another interesting kind of role change here from Aqualix is Gasher, I know during some T3 tournaments, was forced onto kind of entry role, so it's good to see him back on his tried and true hard support IGL. I also expected Rice to be on that kind of flank watch secondary support operator, but it's actually Afer and Nick picking up those roles. Rice taking what Afer used to play, being that soft breach flex. But now, after that roam is done and dusted, Aqualix can now, they can cool off. They can set up, say, all right, hey, we've still got plenty of hard breach. We've still got this Thatcher. We've got man count, and we've got time. Setting up, now opening these walls, making Church a little bit more exposed. The impacts working, I believe, for one, but not the others. So that's going to force Quartz to back off a bit.
Yeah, Quartz has to be careful because the breach has now been opened with those Selmas and a couple of angles for these attackers to utilize. Slime, you can just see it, or Nick rather, he'll be sitting here prone, just looking to get an angle through the Church breach. You've now got the Moto drop coming in from Afer, and he's going to be the one to claim the kill. It's all up to Beastly now in a 1 versus 3 situation that is not going to last much longer, because he is quickly cleaned up, and the round finished off for Aqualix. A rough start, losing Psychosis on the entry, but from there, it was pretty textbook, going through their roam clear and claiming the round.
Yeah, and it looked like, the man who started to bring things back, Rice, it looked like he just dropped Logi Hatch, because there's no way he would have been allowed main stairs. The breach was just open, so I have to assume he dropped Logi Hatch, killed one guy in Con. Arrow, who was looking for the refrag, was just kind of chilling in the middle of construction. So Rice got an easy double kill. Sure, there was a refrag, but at that point, Aqualix, they did lose the first man, but they were so quick into the building that by the time Sykes, got the kill and tried going back to site, there was already a cutoff on main stairs. And at that point, sure, Aqualix lost 2 body, but now they've reclaimed the man count and the time and utility that was left. If there were going to be any 3 operators that you wanted in that 3v2 scenario, it was the ones that the attack still had at their disposal. So beautiful stuff from Aqualix to clean up that round. And in fact, all 5 of them are now going to swap. Still a pretty standard lineup. Actually, the exact same lineup that we just saw in the previous round, only with the roles shifted around. Now it's Psychosis on that flex roll, Rice on the hard breach, and Nick on that hard entry. So interesting stuff from Aqualix, and I'm not sure if this is going to reflect, further in the season, just how much flexibility they have, whether they're just feeling this role and just are playing for comfort and all know how to play these different roles, or if it's site dependent.
Well, we had a chance to talk to these teams just briefly before, the season got started, and highlighting exactly what these teams want to focus on as they get into the stage. And one of the things we actually talked to Aqualix about, and they mentioned to us, is that they really want to focus on the thing you just mentioned, Harrison, on that flexibility. This is a team that is going to pride themselves on their ability to make adjustments in the mid-round, but more than that, be flexible in terms of their roles. Use repick as much as they can. So far, they're already showing us through 2 rounds that they can be adaptable and they can be truly quite flexible. Initially, a little bit of trouble avoiding the bandit trick, but only a few seconds later, and the wall now has been opened. Gasher himself successfully able to open up the main platform breach, and given that that checkbox has now been ticked, they can move on and look to accomplish whatever goal they set their mind to next. Generally, that goal is either push into garage or push into construction and clear master and gym from the other side, and it looks like they're going to opt for the latter approach. You've got Gasher, who's used that second exothermic charge successfully, joined by both Psychosis and Afer in an effort to clear out anyone who's extended on the other side of the top floor.
Yeah, I really like how little that Aqualix needed to expend to get rid of that bandit trick. Just a couple EMPs, 1 ace, and the thermite's still able to go off. And not only that, beautiful utility play and incredible frags to start off. Both Beastly and Arrow go out without an answer, that is, until Psych steps up for 1, but can't land the second. Psychosis pre-fires him down. Quartz had an answer on the other side of the map. That does drop Case outside of Jacuzzi. It looked like one of those Aqualix players just kind of forgot to pick it back up, but Psychosis now has it in hand. And interestingly enough, Nick is getting ready to breach into garage. With the low man count that the Gladiators have at their disposal, they've left Rafters vacant. Nick has already moved into the room, knows that Rafters itself is clear, and is currently just holding the rotate, waiting for his teammates to come back around him. It seems like Psychosis is going to be doubling up with Nick, or maybe playing the breach, leaving Afer alone on the other side of the map. Yeah, he will double up with Nick here and actually switch spots. So it'll be Psychosis going up through Rafters, looking for that default plant spot behind server. In comes Afer for the assist, making sure that Quartz won't get a sneaky playoff hiding around that corner. That leaves it all on Jolton. The main IGL, or rather one of the main IGLs for this team, in the 1 versus 3, nearly wins the fight against Afer, but will have to settle for just damage, and in comes yet another assist from Psychosis. So far, Aqualix, that Gasher system, hasn't reared its ugly head yet.
No, they're playing, structured, they're playing disciplined, and so far it is working. I mean, that was as textbook of a CCTV cash attack as you're pretty much ever going to see. Step 1, open up the platform wall. Do that as early as possible. Step 2, apply pressure from somewhere else. They chose to push that master side to get some pressure from behind, and the Gladiators, they just could not match that clear. They did decide to put a little bit of defensive effort, a little bit of an extension over to that side of the top floor, and the only thing that ended up getting them was, I don't know, an extra death or 2. They were able to get a kill back, but at that point, the damage had already been done. The clear was already pretty much successful, and Aqualix then could move in, pressure construction, pressure the site, and in that 3v2, force those final 2 defenders to really play for a miracle. We saw that there was somebody who wanted to peek the breach. We saw a couple of swings on the top of red stairs. Gaimin Gladiators, they knew they were on the back foot and they would have to pull out something crazy to bring it back. And Aqualix, they stayed composed and they didn't let that kind of comeback happen. So a great start on the attacking side on Clubhouse. That'll be, 2 rounds in a row, and 2 rounds they can certainly be proud of.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are going to keep hearing us talk about or reference these, quote-unquote, late Gasher system, blah, blah, blah. But basically what that means is a lot of Gasher's teams have had a very similar trend, like the analyst desk I mentioned, and it's them kind of going all out on aggression. And so a lot of times they'll, be a little lax on the info gathering game. Their pushes may be a little sloppy. They go for a lot of, early rushes, well, not necessarily rushes, but early walk-ups, a lot of solo hero plays and such. But so far, the first 2 rounds, we have seen none of that. Aqualix have been very methodical, and they haven't been leaving a lot of openings here for the Gaimin Gladiators, except for, that first opening pick in round 1 on the Psychosis. Now, Jonah, something that we haven't talked about yet is the Gladiators' site choice. They have failed in Church, they failed in Cash, and decide that their third bastion will now be Bar.
Yeah, going to Bar is a little bit unexpected. I mean, maybe I'd argue a lot unexpected. This is a site that we have seen only a handful of times. You could count it just on one hand how many times we have seen this site played at a competitive level, period. And, the Gladiators are looking to make it happen. This site depends heavily on that top floor hold, hence why we see Jolton upstairs and why we see him jumping out a window, hoping to slow down the progress that Aqualix can make up above. And he'll claim one, but he'll get traded out because of it. But this is the kind of hold that the defense needs to put together for as long as possible. It is all about the vertical play here. It is all about this top floor control. And once they give it up, Aqualix, they have a lot of flexibility and they can move into pretty much any of the site entrances they want. But for now, they're being delayed just a little bit. Gasher, a little bit uncomfortable here in the long haul, forced to send a couple of flashes in, not super eager taking this fight with Sykes, reasonably so, as the castle will back off. But Psychosis claiming that kill onto Arrow means that, well, Sykes needs to be a lot more careful about what he does next. Quartz, he decides it's his time to shine, though, and he'll take care of Nick and return us back to a 3v3.
Aqualix, though, don't have their sledge, so that vertical destruction is mainly going to be on the back of Afer, who's not really using his breaching charges right now. He's just tasked with keeping watch over the hatch, but he's on a drone. Here comes Sykes, but he completely looks the wrong way. Afer gets up before he dies, but isn't able to land the reactionary shots, and thus the castle gets away with just a bit of damage being given through the wall. Almost a nice shot there by A for a nice prediction. Psychosis is low on HP, but again, he's still got those Osa shields to help protect him. A lot of castle barricades still up on the middle floor as well to help facilitate these rotates. In comes this Osa shield to help cover the plant, but Psychosis puts it far back and then pushes up. He'll die to Beastly. Gasher unaware to his backside, and the Bandit will collect 2. Quartz finishes the round, and Gaimin Gladiators somehow recover after a roam that didn't necessarily go their way.
And claiming their first round to do it on Bar. Double Bar on Clubhouse, that is something special. You don't usually see the site at all, let alone a defensive victory on the site when a defensive team wasn't able to find a victory elsewhere. But nice work there from the Gaimin Gladiators to, I'd say, shift back and play on site, allowing that to really be where their defense, where the crux of their defense is. What I mean by that is, right, you could put a lot more pressure on that top floor, a lot more stake in that, and that does come with a lot of risk. Even though they did put some pressure, they didn't overextend, overcommit to that top floor. And because Quartz had stayed passive for the most part, he was able to resist the urge of running up the main stairs and helping his teammates. He was able to be that element of surprise, just near the site, tucked in kitchen, that Aqualix were not ready for. And because of a okay top floor hold from the Gladiators, Aqualix pushed down those stairs with not a ton of time remaining. They didn't have the comfortable, I'd say, comfort to drone out kitchen to know what they were dealing with from behind. At the end of the day, it was a great attack to start, but they just couldn't transition that into a successful site push. Kind of comes to maybe the surprise of dealing with Bar. You don't know exactly the best approach, and it costs you time. That indecisiveness takes time.
Yeah, and something else that I want to touch on before we move on to this round real quick, so I'll try to get it out, as soon as possible. One of the reasons you might be wondering, Aqualix were so comfortable to play on that metal balcony by the windows was actually that Osa shield. So one of the reasons why they brought Osa, and what I actually love about that push that helped them in that top floor clear, was they put an Osa shield in the server window, right? In the CC window, facing inside, so that little red canister is facing out, and then they punched it. So that completely denies all visibility and all opportunity to peek from the defense across that server window from CC. So I love that play. I mean, if someone had an impact, they'd be able to just easily blow it open. But clearly, no one on the Gladiators did. So that was just a little, small thing from Aqualix that I thought was actually really creative. So hats off to Gasher or Psychosis or whoever came up with that. But again, moving on to this round, the Gladiators don't have nearly as much of a stalwart hold on this top floor. The roam seems a lot more lax, a lot more pushed back. They're playing more just for the rotate. They've got two people sort of on the middle floor. Or I think Jolton just rotated down. Arrow is still upstairs, but they're not pressing as heavy into that entry denial upstairs. They're more just kind of, poking and prodding at Aqualix, and when they feel a little too much pressure on them, they fall back.
Well, he's not been pressured too much just yet. The majority of this attack is not really worried about clearing the full top floor just yet. Right now, they're already working a good bit of vertical play. You combine that with some pressure from Nick down below. You look to force out this Vigil in bar, and already you're going to find some success. Arrow was lit up, and so finally feeling the pressure we've talked about, and he will fall back to the site where those Kona stations from Quartz, the Thunderbird, can heal him back up a little bit, and he'll be back to full HP in no time. But the one thing he did give up during that rotation was, of course, the map control. Aqualix have now been able to secure both of these top two floors all to themselves. They've gotten a kill while doing it, and they are sitting pretty. It now just comes down to, can they, in the last 40 seconds, get enough of these hatches open, get that church wall open again, and force Gaimin Gladiators into that uncomfortable, tight position on the site that Aqualix were able to do so successfully last time. Once again, the impact trick here, very important to see how it works here for Nick, but looks like those Selma charges will go down for good.
Yeah, and Quartz, once again, going to be exposed here. No, the debris going to block his impact, but no, Nick whiffs on main stairs, gives his life up to Jolton. Psychosis at least has a refrag and the site control. Rice is the next to go down, but once again, a refrag from the Zofia. He'll finally be shut down in a 2 versus 2, 1 versus 2 for Beastly, but Gasher and Afer are both 1 HP. All the mutant has to do is land 1 bullet to each. The plant is going down. Afer doesn't know about the man in the long haul, and it will be denied in 000. A lapse of coverage on that planter will end up being the final nail in the coffin for Aqualix.
Well played there. Good adjustment there from the Gaimin Gladiators, especially, I think, the Malusi. Was it Jolton who was playing the Malusi who ran up the long hall and contested main stairs directly? That's a risky play, don't get me wrong, but that is the reason why Aqualix were not able to move into church, move in as expeditiously as we saw them do on that very first round. The beauty of that first round attack is that there was so much pressure coming from church, main stairs, and moto at the same time. The Gaimin Gladiators just could not stop it. They just got pinched, they got stuck in corners, and there wasn't an avenue for a teammate to rotate around and help them. The adjustment they made here after seeing the identical attack from Aqualix is they said, wait a second, if this main stairs player is alone, if they haven't dropped Moto yet, we can actually get aggressive here. Jolton walked all the way up, took care of Nick, and just like that, totally turned the round on its head. It then meant that Aqualix had to apply some pressure from behind. It was relying on a miracle play from Psychosis, sneaking in the site from Blue to really get something done. And while he was able to frag out, and at the end of the round, it was still a 2v1 in favor of Aqualix, their whole attacking plan had gone completely out the window, and when something like that happens, you lose the coverage, you lose the knowledge of where every single defender might be positioned. That's how the plant was able to be denied at 000, and that's how Gaimin Gladiators took their second round.
Yeah, and even then, the success started even earlier than that, right? Because what really worked for Aqualix was, the man count and the time. In this round, all they had was the man count. You could see they were a little frantic with the way they were moving. They didn't have nearly as much time to work with, only about 40 seconds by the time they started pressuring the site. And why is that? because the Gladiators did not give Aqualix the fights on the roams. I love the adjustment. Aqualix took so long to pressure out those roamers because they weren't given the 1v1s, 2v1s they were looking for on that roam clear, and it really worked to the defense's advantage. But in come the breach already from Aqualix. They did this on the first cash attack, and it worked. Same thing, worked well for them. They had plenty of time to now go over towards Master, plenty of utility that they didn't need to waste opening server, and now pressure out these extended players. C4 goes up through the hatch, but it will be completely unsuccessful. So now you're down 1 C4. The last thermite charge will be used, and we'll probably again see a very similar attack to the one we saw in round 2.
Yeah, Aqualix staying consistent here, not trying to vary things too much. We saw how that penalized them in the last round, but we'll see what they can make do here in round 5. They do have some intel. They know that Sykes is sitting here in Master. The question is, does Sykes know how much pressure is being applied? Great shot there from Afer, taking down Quartz all the way on the other side of the top floor. Sykes, the next defender, in trouble, I thought, but looks like Afer had no idea, figuring he may have rotated away, but obviously mistaken. Rice is able to get the trade, but Psychosis has been taken down, at least injured, in the meantime. He's up on the roof, so I think that must have been Beastly going for the challenge there, but only getting the down and not the secure means that Aqualix will still maintain this advantage now that Psychosis has been revived. So we're in a 4v3. Psychosis obviously is pretty low on health, and they haven't forced out Beastly, who's still on that other side of the top floor. In terms of the site players, Arrow and Jolton, that's where they're positioned, and they're about to feel Aqualix rolling through as long as Aqualix clear out Beastly in time, and as if on cue, Psychosis gets the kill.
Yeah, just as you were talking about that, there was a drone whizzing by on Beastly's screen and a player sure to follow. Gas canisters still going out to delay this construction push. And I'm not quite sure if that's where Case is. The player on Platwall is the Zofia. So yeah, I think Case is coming from that direction. There's no more smoke canisters for Jolton though. All he's got left is his gun. And as the Jaeger goes down, he's alone and he stands little chance against the LMG of Nick, who ends up cleaning the last 2 kills all for himself. A wonderful debut so far for both him and Rice.
Yeah, starting off pretty damn well, I gotta say. We're gonna talk a lot, especially in these first 2 play days when we're seeing all the teams for the first time about all their new pickups. But the theme and the storyline of these players doesn't just stop there. It's something we're gonna have to evaluate as the next few weeks approach, as we see how these teams developed, how they adapt, because there are so many new pickups, new players, some new to CL completely, some just new to a certain team. I mean, even Quartz, with a player with that much experience, is new to this Gaimin Gladiators roster, has not played with the majority of these players before, so he'll be experiencing this for the new time as well. And seeing how these players mesh, seeing how they work in whatever new system they come up with, is going to be very important to identify. I mean, Quartz is going to be one of the players we focus on as well, shifting his role from a pretty dominant leadership role on one shot to, likely more of just that supporting flex support role here on Gaimin Gladiators. You've got 4 very loud voices on this team, all of whom have a lot of experience. And then you've got Sykes coming in the mix as well, who was an incredible fragger last stage 3 of CL on Nocturnes, who came out and had a really good performance and got a lot of eyes on him, and that's why he's on a team like this now.
Yeah, Sykes on Castle is actually a little interesting. That's not a role that I've seen him play too often. But yeah, he's 3 and 4, so not the best, but he's doing okay. Certainly a little better than Arrow. Arrow, someone that, all our eyes were going to be on after the performance he had on IF, as that secondary support player. But he's never really been a defensive player to begin with. So I'll give him the pass right now. It's day 1. Maybe you just got to shake off the new team rust. I mean, hey, that's one of Gaimin Gladiators. When I asked them, what was the biggest thing you were working on during the offseason, they just said just basic team chemistry and coordination, because even these 5 haven't had a lot of time together because, right, they had Wimpy before Wimpy went to fill for Parabellum in the NAL, and that prompted, a very recent roster change once again from the Gladiators. But hey, Aqualix won 2 in a row. Gladiators tied it up. Aqualix win 1 more. A lot of people have been saying that Clubhouse is a lot more even, maybe even attacker-sided this day and age. So Gladiators I imagine, aren't too worried yet. If they can still clean up this round, then both sides, I'm sure, will be sitting in a pretty good position heading into the second half.
Well, this round, they're looking to secure another successful double bar defense, and they'll start off with a nice kill because Afer just walks in the breach. He walked into a crossfire. Not only that, he had a C4 thrown right at his face at that exact moment, and so you've lost your Thatcher, and you've lost one of the people who's been delivering quite a few kills for your team. You've now lost Slime as well. Good trade, though, as Psychosis sneaks in from bathroom on the first floor, totally surprising this defense. That right there is the danger of bar, because now it is open. Now it is in the control of the attackers, and Gasher now getting that kill means this is a 2v1, leaving Arrow up above. Does he have a sight on the planter? There's a couple of pings, but he doesn't quite see him. He's just not getting the angle he needs. The spray is on the mark, but it is too late. Now Gasher and Psychosis can both reposition. They can go pretty much anywhere they want as long as they play off each other. They have so many options with how they want to hold this. Arrow's got a tough job ahead of him as he drops down into billiards from Jim. Gasher, the first one to take the fight, and Arrow won't even win the first one. Aqualix take the 6th round. They figure out the strategy to attacking double bar, which is kind of just walk in, take gunfights, and win them.
Yeah, I was a little nervous for Aqualix's chances, especially with Afer just crouch walking into about 3 different people. So they lose Afer early, but then Psychosis, who I thought was going to die, because there was someone in bar who looked like they were about to walk up to the double door, someone top main, and someone bottom main. But somehow, some way, Psychosis is able to isolate 2 fights. I think maybe the Vigil in bar, was distracted by something else, understandable, because, there's people clearing top floor. I think there was someone pushing him from lounge, blah, blah, blah. But Psychosis winning the first fight, not getting traded, Vigil dying, and Psychosis moving in and taking site control completely flipped that round on its head. The Gaimin Gladiators, their top floor hold that Aqualix hadn't cleared, ended up not mattering at all. And it's really surprising that Arrow wasn't able to get that plant denial, because they had a BP. They had pings, they had yellow pings that were almost exactly on Gasher, and it looked like those holes were set up to counter it, especially the one by the Condor. I thought when Arrow was running over, he was going to be able to easily just spot Gasher and kill him. But it ended up, not being so. Arrow didn't play the holes correctly, or maybe the info, wasn't as exact as it looked on the spectator HUD, but either way, Aqualix end up taking a 4-2 half, and now we'll have to see if the Gladiators are just as good on their Clubhouse attacks as the first half.
I mean, Clubhouse is one of those maps that we have seen kind of just be all over the place in terms of, is it going to be attacker-sided or defender-sided? We've seen a lot of teams shift to that attacker focus on a map like Clubhouse, and yeah, some nights it is defensive-sided. It depends on the bans. It depends on the teams we've got in front of us. But right now, if Gaimin Gladiators want to bring this one back and take this one all the way, then yeah, they're going to have to prove that it is going to be an attacker-sided club, to say the least. We do have a little bit of a lineup change in terms of what we saw from Aqualix and now what we see from Gaimin Gladiators. The biggest one is the presence of the Finca. Not something we saw from Aqualix much on that last half, something that they used to bring a lot, but we just didn't see from them in this particular setup. Corch is going to be bringing that out. And yeah, the question there, Pro, I mean, I think is pointing to the lack of a double reinforcement on that jacuzzi wall.
Yeah, little odd, and the Gladiators, because their Sledge and Orzo is in no position to help them out. Neither is the Ace, end up just using a Thermite Charger anyway, and what a pre-fire from Psychosis. Dumpstering Jolton, taking the first kill, a follow-up from Rice, peeking into dirt? I guess? Was dirt soft, or did he kill someone in dirt?
Another one? Wow.
Dirt soft! Yeah, he got that on the jacuzzi balk.
Okay. We are seeing an aggressive Aqualix defense, but a Gaimin Gladiators attack that is walking in and just, I mean, they look a little bit lost right now. They had no idea how much of that aggression Aqualix was going to throw at them. I mean, hardly aggression. They were just trying to maintain map control, and, well, boy, did it work. It's now a 5v2. You've got Beastly and Arrow with almost no options at this point. It is 2 hard breachers, so they could approach from pretty much anywhere, but because Gasher has the heartbeat sensor on the pulse, he knows exactly where you're coming from. this one isn't gonna probably go so well. The drop in moto has come in for both players, dropping in at the same time. Beastly going for the wide swing, looking for Nick here, potentially on this long angle, but I imagine his intel is limited. Despite that, he'll get a nice shot and a good headshot there, but with only 15 seconds left, they have got to get a move on. Rice is holding the long haul. He'll be flashed and forced to fall back. Beastly can advance. At the same time, Arrow likely to go for the swing from Moto. No, he is just lingering in the hallway. He'll secure the trade, but now he will run out of time to do anything else. So a clean defensive round there from Aqualix, leaving no doubt that they are going to be the team to start things off successfully on their defensive half.
Yeah, incredibly aggressive, very forward. There's a lot of things that aggressiveness can imply. It's a more of a blanket term, but I feel like that style that Aqualix is playing is kind of the most common example of quote-unquote aggressive that we see in T2 play and even down in T3, and that is entry denial. That is Aqualix searching for those kills, making sure that everywhere the Gladiators were trying to set up just to enter the building, just to take map control, was thwarted. I mean, even going so far as to leave dirt soft, punch hole it, and kill someone on Jacuzzi Bell. That was through and through Aqualix just meeting the Gladiators everywhere they tried to go. So, and it worked. Beautiful stuff from Aqualix. I mean, that is what, their attacks definitely looked different. They looked better. But that defense, that is old Aqualix. Through and through. And hey, if it's going to keep working like that, maybe if it's been working in scrims and it's worked in the first round, maybe they'll keep that energy, through further defensive rounds. Maybe we'll have, kind of an interesting dichotomy between their attacks and defenses.
Well, on yet another one of their defenses here, they are going to keep us guessing in terms of the site selection, because we are going to see gym and bedroom for the first time today. We saw Gaimin Gladiators prefer double bar as that tertiary objective, but Aqualix going here as their secondary choice. And we see a pretty generous extension, I'd say. Only one player, at least a moment ago, was on the site. You've got Nick sitting down below. You've got two players sitting over in that cache side. And yeah, you've got two players over by the site. The Echo from Rice is interesting. Those yokai drones add a lot of that intel. You combine that with those evil eyes Psychosis is bringing, and you're really making up for the lost intel that, the Valkyrie ban may have, put them in a little bit of that spot. But with all that intel, they should know that exactly what they're dealing with, that they've got Sykes approaching down below. He's got a couple of drones at his feet. He's looking to get some intel of his own. But Aqualix right now, they're comfortable to sit back and wait for Gaimin Gladiators to make that first move.
And again, right? It's a waiting game. So what I thought would be a common theme in the Aqualix defense ended up maybe being a one-hit wonder to try and catch Gladiators off guard for a round. And now they're just waiting. They are perfectly happy to allow the Gladiators in, to allow them to take their initial map control. But again, there's still someone in that basement who looks like is about to get hunted down. It's Nick, who's in a very exposed position, but as he swings main stairs, I thought he was going to click the trigger, but Jolton is faster. It'll be the Sledge with the first pick onto a C4 operator, so not the best thing to lose if you're the defense, but he was probably playing in a position where he expected to die anyway. But that nade, beautiful from Jolton to get his second kill onto the Maestro. The Echo next to fall. 2 out of 3 of those late game operators, those main plant denial operators, no longer available to this defense. Luckily, Gasher, he's still up on that smoke, but he's starting to push forward, and he will get caught by Arrow. And the second, Afer misses some key shots, and it's a flawless attack for the Gladiators.
Well, we mentioned the two very distinct differences we just saw from Aqualix, an aggressive one and an extremely passive one. And, well, clearly, we've got some kind of lesson here about what works and what doesn't, at least against Gaimin Gladiators. The aggressive style worked beautifully, a near flawless round for them, and they get flawless by sitting back and waiting for Gaimin Gladiators to take control of the map. And boy, did they do that. I mean, we saw how they beautifully were able to just push into bar below uncontested. Didn't have to worry about somebody challenging them there because Nick was all the way down in the basement. You did see some extension on that top floor, and despite the intel, we even saw a yokai drone in bar it still didn't cue Aqualix that, wait a minute, there might be some nades coming from down below, guys. We got to relocate on the site. You know, sit in the shower, find a hard floor here. No, instead, it was a perfect nade down below from Jolton that ended up, you know, doing the Maestro in, doing Psychosis in, and really forcing Aqualix into that uncomfortable spot. Like you said, Harrison, they lost all of that late game plant denial. They were forced to just take gunfights. We saw those last two players. We saw Gasher on the smoke just take the fight with the player on the Jacuzzi breach. Obviously, that didn't go so well. Great job there from Gaimin Gladiators. They've just got to do that again. Keep that discipline up, and I'd imagine stave off the aggression from Aqualix that we're likely to see start ramping up.
Yeah, and I like how, you know, in that previous round, Aqualix letting up in the aggression not only allowed Gaimin Gladiators, you know, into the building to take that control, which Aqualix expected, but it also allowed the info game to really come into play for the Gladiators. It looked like throughout that entire round, they never didn't know what they were walking into, if I can put it like that. They always had eyes. They always knew what they were getting into. And that's definitely, you know, a reverse from what we saw in their first attack, where it seemed like every time they found something, Aqualix would immediately make it stale by running to the other side of the map and peeking. So maybe Aqualix go back to what worked for them. As of right now, they are still not playing that entry denial, super aggressive game. They're laying back with their cams on the Echo, who is their only form of plant denial this round, unless we include those C4s from Gasher and Afer, but Gasher was extended into Strip Club before, unless he's fallen back. I think the castle is there now. Gladiator's top floor clear, though, has been taking a fair bit of time, and Beastly, alone by stock, will finally open this wall. Quartz also soloed downstairs, looking like he was hunting for Gasher, but will end up backing off and just holding an angle, maybe trying to bait the bandit into his line of sight, as Sykes, now also solo, begins to push Kitchen.
Yeah, a couple of different solo plays here from the Gladiators. They do have to be careful. Like we've said, the aggressiveness, the confidence from Aqualix will thrive if they get to take these 1v1 gunfights. Arrow is the first player to take a bit of damage, but Psychosis gets even more lit up, playing aggressively behind this shield here, and Master, a beautiful nade tossed his way. He's forced to relocate, and Arrow is able to get that kill because of it. Afer still taking gunfights, nearly losing his life, but ends up getting the down. Jolton actually pops up thanks to a good Finka boost, gets the trade, but Slime gets two back. Sykes answers, taking down Nick, and now it is a 1v3. Gasher left alone, tucked here by the diffuser, has a possible chance here to deny these players as they try to recover it. It's just a matter of getting this intel for the attack. Jolton is sending this drone in, looking to see if they can spot the bandit sitting crouched in the corner, and they will. Now Gasher's in trouble. He's forced to move. A couple of bullets hitting him in the back as he runs away. Lit up and with very few options, taking another bullet to the chest. He is now on 1 HP, and he is out of options entirely. Good shot there from Sykes, but a turnaround there from Gaimin Gladiators. The top floor clear started off well, and it nearly went awry with a play from Afer, but a good timed Finka boost changed their luck.
Yeah, I was really concerned with the Gladiators' multitude of solo players kind of walking around the building, but it ended up really working out for them because Aqualix, again, they're not pushing out and they're not taking these 1v1 engagements, so Gladiators are in a much safer position despite being by themselves. And again, instead of the Gladiators moving in to get those fights, it's just to have map control. It's just to establish angles, cutoffs, and plant coverage. So once the Gladiators feel as if they have enough pieces of the puzzle, you know, Psychosis goes down upstairs, Afer gets refragged, smokes go out, plant starts going down from the thermite, Aqualix are in a scramble, they have to rotate in, they have to try and run up to deny the plant, and who's holding those angles to stop that? The solo players in those positions, like Kitchen, like by the basement, upstairs, cutting down the Aqualix members as they try and run in. And sure, Nick made a huge play by denying that plant and killing one of the cover, but he was refragged. And at the end of the day, Gaimin Gladiators already had that man advantage squarely in their favor. I mean, those 2 kills from Nick were the only 2 kills his team had. So well done to the Gladiators. They're starting to bring things back. I mean, it was a 5-2 scoreline, and we're now within 1 round of even.
Yeah, this may be as attacker-sided as it looked like on that first half, especially if Gaimin Gladiators can just get this 3rd round in a row. They'd be looking really good. They'd be set up very well for those last 2 rounds, potentially headed towards overtime, but they'd be looking good either way. We're now headed, of course, to a basement defense for Aqualix again. This is the one we saw them get insanely aggressive last time, and it looks like that pattern is not going to change at all. Afer, the first player to get contested by the attackers, just throws a C4 towards the breach that the sledge had opened, and it's actually Quartz who gets claimed by the explosion. So losing your Finka at this stage in the game, that's going to be very detrimental for the Gladiators unless they can find a way to get the answer. You've got two players potentially that you could take care of on this top floor. The first one falls, but the second is not going to go away so easily. Psychosis takes care of Jolton, and now will drop away. Smart decision from him, keeping that advantage as long as they can.
Yeah, allowing Jolton through ended up working for one kill, but very swiftly refrag. And now Sykes is on the hunt. He'll light up Psychosis, but there's no kill just yet. The Legion's still living to fight another day. He's got a couple pings on him, so the Gladiators are fully aware of his position. And in comes Beastly to try and assist, but eventually Psychosis just exposes himself and dies to Sykes, returning the man count to even. But now there's a third player, Rice, hanging out by Wolf. He's got the SMG-11 and he's playing a long angle, so not quite sure how well that's going to work out for him if he chooses to take that far-off fight, or maybe just back off. It looks like he's gone back down secret, ready to assist his site players. Gasher on the pulse, not really going to have much use as a C4 is expended, but he can at least call that Moto drop. He sees one on the hatch, make that two, is likely calling out to his team, hey, they're going towards Moto, now walking towards kitchen. There's no one on main stairs just yet. Arrow working to breach open the kitchen hatch, but again, he's going to need a second. Luckily for him, there's no impact trick in sight as the Melusi has brought those bulletproof cams, and Legion is dead. Thus, the kitchen hatch now open. Nick watching it like a hawk, as well as Rice. Two players watching this drop down. I highly doubt any attacker is going to be able to make it safe through there unless they have some pretty well-placed smokes, but Nick might be able to see over them due to this elevated position. The Gladiators need to get a move on. There are only 15 seconds left in this round. Gasher now sees there's one player main stairs. The drop has to come through, and Nick easily catches one, instantly refragged by Beastly, but Gasher takes one on main stairs, and the C4 has Beastly's name on it, meaning it's now match point for Aqualix.
I mean, you waited too long to make it happen. They just waited far too long to actually make the push. And even though it was a 3v3, when you've got the clock working so much in the favor of the defense, there's only so much you can do when you're going for that miracle. They were able to collect the one kill, the one trade onto the player who was completely exposed, just in the middle of the site, but they were not ready for the C4, couldn't shoot it out, didn't have the proper coverage, and they just were not ready for another swing that they just could not predict either. Another strong round for Aqualix, a little bit of a combination between that crazy aggressive round that we saw from them and a little bit of a blend between that more passive style. They started off with a heavy early contestation of that attack on the top floor, and it worked wonders for them. When they did lose Psychosis, though, they turned it back into a 3v3. They decided, okay, let's just play our game. Let's stay passive. Let's hold on the site. And again, because they had made such early work, early progress, that ended up being pretty successful for them. So you applaud them for making that mid adjustment and changing it up mid-round because it worked for them again. And it does look like we have got a little bit of a lag in the server, so we're gonna have to get a bit of a rehost going before we dive into further rounds and get some, hopefully see a little bit of a comeback by the Gaimin Gladiators and send this one all the way.
Yeah, hopefully it fixes that sound bug too. Your ears do not deceive you if you are hearing very muffled audio and some white static noise in the background. That is normal. I wouldn't say normal, but you're not alone. It's happening to us too. It's the game. For some reason, with this new update, there are a few observer sound bugs, and they are not fun. So, we apologize for the inconvenience, but there's really nothing we can do. So hopefully this rehost will amend that as well. Hopefully the servers are no longer going to die, and the players don't have to lag. But right before we cut away, Jonah, we saw the site selection from Aqualix, and it was bar. Yeah. Once again. So we have seen all 4 sites be played today so far, and it's surprising to say that I think Cash is... Oh no, Gym is the least played. We've only had Gym once. Meanwhile, we've had Cash twice, Bar 3 times.
Gotta be a 4th.
So I guess... Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we've actually had to play more than Church now. 'Cause Church is 3. So is this just these 2 teams? Or is it, this new meta? People have figured out the site, blah, blah, blah. Is Bar going to be a new mainstay on Club?
I mean, we're gonna see a lot of teams, both in Challenger League and with the Pro League NAL starting next week. We're gonna see a lot of teams experimenting, and we're not gonna know the real answer until enough of those experiments have happened, and until enough of these teams have tried the site, they've discovered the weaknesses, and then they make some adjustments and see. I don't think it's going to be a mainstay in the long term, but in the short term, as attacking teams are completely unfamiliar with this site, the difference you can make as a defensive team by just planning and just dry running the heck out of a single site, like that can put, like, that is a massive gap you can put between yourself and an attacking team that has attacked Bar like twice in their life. It's an amazing difference that makes. Whereas attacking teams, CCTV and Cash, Church, Jim, they have done that thousands and thousands of times. The amount of reps that they have on that site, they know those well. So maybe that's when we'll see Bar be the most successful. But I think that once attacking teams get that practice, when they realize how vulnerable the site is for a bit of a combination pressure up above and down below at the same time, like we saw Aqualix do so well a couple of rounds ago, we may see this site fall back again. But I mean, we're just speculating at this point. We don't know how it's going to develop and how the new changes, how repick is going to factor in, because in theory, this entire game should be more attacker sided now that repick is a factor.
Yeah, and I mean, just talking about Bar, the way that we've seen the site pan out the 3 times during this match so far have been quite varied, right? Round 3, we saw Bar played, and it was down to the Gladiators, having a roam that was cleared out rather quickly, but it was their site play that really came into full effect. We see it again, round 6, where this time, Aqualix not only, wins a fight upstairs, but it's a solo hero play from Psychosis in Bathroom to open up that site and really dig that hole. And we just see Bar again on round, I can't count. 10? 9? Round 9.
We saw it on 9, and now we're about to see it on 11.
Yeah. Round 9. I forgot I counted the 6th round as 7th for whatever reason. We saw it again on round 9. And what happened that time? Aqualix were kind of playing their passive roam again. There weren't a lot of fights to be had in the early round, but it allowed the Gladiators to take map control and set up for the execute. So 3 very different ways that we've had the site pan out so far, and I can appreciate that. Bar has been, not only an interesting site just because, it's an off site, but it seems like every time we've seen it played, even not just in this match, but in the NAL, during Invite, in other T3 tournaments and stuff, it seems like there's always something different going on with Bar. Like, every team has their own interpretation of it.
And I'm confident we're going to see more of those interpretations, right, as the weeks go on.
I hope so.
I mean, it's an exciting sight to see. We've not only got, those new maps, we've got Border now in the mix. We've got, Skyscraper back and Theme Park back in the action. It should be great to see how teams work with those new maps, those new sites. And even though Bar isn't essentially a brand new site, we are entering a new meta, a new phase of the game where we could see some sites come out of the woodwork, and be much more dominant than before. We ask that you stick with us just a little bit longer. We are still getting this lobby set up and get everything back together. We were dealing with, like we said, a couple of sound bugs and that server lag, but hopefully now we will be able to get back in once we get all those things squared away.
Well, unfortunately, Jonah, I got a little whisper in my ear from our Russian producer saying that, unfortunately, the servers might be dead.
All of the servers.
So, we're having a bit of a struggle connecting back to Ubisoft Connect, launching our game and connecting to servers, blah, blah, blah. So we are going to go and throw to a quick break so you don't have to listen to us, ramble on about Bar for another 15 minutes. But hopefully it's going to be under 10 minutes. Hopefully the servers are back up online. And as soon as we get confirmation that Ubisoft Connect is available, all the players are back in the lobby, we will have our game ready and waiting. So we apologize for the wait. Please stick with us. We'll be back as soon as we have everything sorted out.
but mankind won't be destroyed. The fact that you and I are working here today is evidence of that.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about the break. Hopefully it wasn't too long, but we have everyone back in the lobby. We are no longer having server issues, and no one's lagging. I had to give it a couple seconds because you know how Siege can be sometimes. So we are back, 6-4 Aqualix. If you were not with us previously, it was a 4-2 attacking half for Aqualix, and 2-2 right now in the second half between both these teams, and Aqualix are going to take us to Bar for the 4th time, now tied for the most played site on this map with Church.
Yeah, before the break, we were talking a good bit about Bar and its place, in the meta right now. Are we going to see this site really develop? Are we going to see this site a lot more than we have in the past? Who knows? But at least today, we have seen it quite a bit. Like you said, 4 times, as many times as we have seen Basement, Church, and Arsenal also be played. We'll now see, though, how Aqualix want to defend this. We've seen a variety of defensive setups, most of which hinge upon a pretty significant top floor hold. The one thing we have not seen, though, is a bit of a horizontal extension. Right now, we see Nick playing the Warden over in Strip right now. We see someone down in dirt, unless my eyes deceive me, and Quartz is now looking to hunt them down. Rice, though, providing the long angle coverage, good intel there from Gasher, and great communication to make sure they secure the opening kill of what could be match point.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate first pick if you're the Gladiators. I mean, Quartz is Nook, not the biggest pick in the world, but it is nades. It is a good set of nades. Now Jolton has the only set left on this attack. I think Quartz maybe got a little bit ahead of himself because if we remember the previous attempt on Bar, Rice was playing by main stair, so he was within, very close range to help support Gasher, who is still in the basement and now being hunted by a different player. It's Arrow now on the ace, but it looks like the Pulse is aware of this as Gasher continues to flick on and off his cardiac sensor. Now actually walking towards Blue, will likely spot Arrow in just a second. And there it is. There's the heartbeat, maybe even a spam through the wall. No, it's a C4 instead, but Arrow gets away up the secret stairs just in time and is now, I think, going to assist his team in a top floor clear.
Yeah, right now, because this defense is so spread out, this attack is forced to do just the same thing. They've got to commit so many resources to so many different parts of the map, and right now, that has resulted in the Gaimin Gladiators being put extremely on the back foot. Now, they have been able to open up cache and force Afer back a little bit, but he isn't going to give up construction easily because it is a vital position with an important hatch to hold for a bit longer. He's got some intel assisted by the Echo, those yokai drones of Rice, to hopefully give him some intel of what he's dealing with. He's also got Psychosis and a deployable shield to play behind to support that position as well. Arrow prepping for a possible run out, want to make sure that nobody can get overly aggressive on them because with 35 seconds left, Gaimin Gladiators cannot afford any more distractions.
And Afer, speaking of distractions, is still upstairs with an open con breach and open stage hatch and only 25 seconds on the clock. Once again, the Gladiators extremely pressed for time. 20 seconds now as Jolton falls 3 versus 5. Now trailing by 2. The Gladiators, this might be a completely lost round, especially with the Echo Cam still up. Speaking of, it'll get the spot on the Thermite and down he goes as Nick and Afer get 2 more kills off screen. screen. And after that rehost, unfortunately, we're not going to see more of the game. It will end after the next round. Congratulations to Aqualix taking a 7-4 win and looking, I would say, better than they did at the tail end of stage 3.
Yeah, I think this is the best form we have seen Aqualix in almost ever. I mean, they looked really refined. They looked really put together, something that doesn't usually scream Aqualix, right? You scream that Gasher strategy, you would think they're going to run at you, they're going to just sprint into the site, jump out a window and surprise you. They didn't do anything of the sort. Maybe a little bit of the sort, but for the most part, they played a good old-fashioned game of Siege, and they just beat Gaimin Gladiators at their own game. On paper, this Gaimin Gladiators roster is very strong. And the thing they're going to have to deal with is, how do they take 5 extremely competent players who all have been on different orgs, different teams in their own right? How do they put that all together and create a team that cannot be stopped? That's the big question for them. Doesn't look like they have an answer, at least in their very first game on the very first Playday of this year.
Yeah, and Aqualix, I guess an apology is due to Gasher for thinking that he was going to be running the same old stuff that he always has been. I mean, sure, a lot of the strategies on Clubhouse on the attack were, I wouldn't say repetitive, but were not very different between the attacks. But I like the way they played a lot more passive than we're used to seeing. They played a lot more smart, a lot more thorough as well. I think thorough is the name of the game when it comes to Aqualix's play today, and I definitely look forward to seeing this new and improved Aqualix later in the stage. But for now, we're going to throw it back to the analyst desk and see how they digest the first game of 2022.
Well, we started off this stage hot. I gotta say, this was a fantastic game between Gaimin Gladiators and Aqualix. Connor, I'll start with you. Who in your mind were some of the winners and some of the losers of this match? Obviously not, barring the teams who won and lost.
Big winners, Psychosis and Slimy Nick. Big loser, Sykes. Really unfortunate that we didn't see the Sykes that we saw out of Nocturnes come through. Maybe still uncomfortable in the overall system, but for the side of Aqualix, it was Clubhouse for them. They seemed insanely comfortable in their playstyle. It's just suited to a nice, simple map like Clubhouse that everybody knows what's going on, and it lets the mechanical skills shine. That was the real gut check of this map, and their abs, when they got punched, made it bounce back.
Yeah, let's talk about Clubhouse a bit here, Cookies, because over the course of, I'd say, the last few years, we've seen Clubhouse go from a defender-sided map, and I would say it's skewing in the side of the attackers now. Is this the most attacker-favored Clubhouse we've seen to date?
It's definitely getting to that point. I would say if you look at how Aqualix especially used that attacker repick, that's something that it was borderline abusive. Okay, they're picking. And here's the thing: Aqualix is liable to do that. They're liable to bring Fuse and whatnot. They've done it before Challenger League, real life, no cap. They've done that. And the thing is, they can fake it now, and they can just come out with something totally different. We saw an Osa come out of nowhere. It didn't actually work. I don't think that around, but that's obviously something. It's just unpredictable and annoying, and I gotta say, Brim, I kind of figured this would happen. I figured Clubhouse. I wanted to change my prediction. I literally said it.
You should have done it. You should have done it.
We should have trusted our instincts.
I was like mid-key, I want to change it, and then I didn't change it. But like, the minute Gaimin Gladiators banned out Villa over Clubhouse, they decided to go. So
Connor, was this due to that Clubhouse map pick, or do you think that Aqualix showed us some things that we didn't expect, or in the reverse, did Gaimin Gladiators fall flat to your expectations?
I think the Gaimin definitely fell flat, and Aqualix probably would have won on 8 out of the 9 maps in this pool right now. This was just Aqualix played better, flat out. Every single step of the way, their roam clears a lot more lethal, and as well as on their defensive side, they were able to just slow the game in attacks to an absolute crawl. Just so many rounds won due to the requirement of heroic plays at the end, like the double kitchen hatch drop, because they had 8 seconds left, as opposed to Aqualix, they were hitting the site with like 30 to 40 seconds. They had that little bit of extra time, that little buffer where there wasn't as much stress on their attacks, and that led to them winning a lot more of them.
Now, let's not forget, this is just the very first game of a long stage, a long season. Let's not forget the fact that like these teams, these players are still learning each other, even if they have previous experience. Cookies, Gaimin Gladiators, these guys have to have more than what we saw today. I would just think, given the names on that roster.
Definitely, I think the other one we kind of talk a lot about, Quartz, dropped like a good old donut on the entry. And here's the thing, Quartz, in his words, he wanted to play like more entry and more fragging roles because that's what he expects to play. Because this is the guy who wants to go back to the NL, right? He wants to play that at NL level. So he decided, I'm going to join this Gaimin Gladiators team to play these fragging roles. And then he's obviously struggling. So I would expect, given Quartz's work ethic, given the kind of guy he is, right, he's going to turn it around. And, you know, Connor, you talked about how more decisive Aqualix look. It's a lot easier to be decisive and look good when you're entering. When you're getting in there and you're actually confident winning those fights. That just wasn't the case for the Gladiators.
Now, as always with the winning team, we are going to interview one of the players, and it's going to be none other than Gasher from Aqualix. Gasher, we've been here before. This is nothing new for us. How was that first matchup of the season for you today?
It went great. Not much to say.
Okay, went great. Well, you did get the W. Was your team synergizing well? Was this kind of, was the win expected? Was it, you know, a little on the rocks at all for you guys?
I mean, we came in expecting a win. I mean, we know how good we are. I mean, we trusted our strats, trusted each other. Like at the end, we just made adaptations as we saw it. We didn't really follow strats as much. We just kind of said, "Hey, they're doing this. Let's just do this," and it worked. So I mean, I think we had good vibes with each other, and played off each other very well.
Now, looking forward to this stage, where do you see your team kind of in comparison to the rest? Because there's a lot of teams here. We're not Group A, Group B anymore. There's a lot going on. Where do you guys see yourselves placing? Top of the pack, mid pack? Where would that be?
Yeah, the top.
At the very top?
We have the talent. We need to win. I mean, we work hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't really have like a weak point anywhere. We have the fraggers, we have the supports, we have the good strats. We can play out the strats well. We can do different bands. We can play every map. I mean, I expect us to be at the top.
Okay, so you're saying it's safe for me from this point on in predictions to just put Aqualix for every single matchup?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to it. Well, congratulations, Gasha. It's a big win to start the season. Hopefully we'll be talking again soon each week.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Oh, a subdued Gasher, Connor. This is not something we're used to in the interview process.
Yeah, it was just nice and calm. I mean, you probably didn't have that much adrenaline going because he was only in 9 engagements over the entirety of the game. But that's also just a testament to how good Aqualix was playing. In an ideal situation, your hard breach diffuser carrier just shouldn't even take a gunfight at all. You know, it's just Afer, Psycho, Slimy Nick, go kill. And that's pretty much what was happening. Like he was saying, the reads from Aqualix were just on point. They knew exactly what Gaimin were doing. Not really any variety or any complexities to the defensive strategies or even the attacking takes of Gaimin Gladiators. It was just the most default Clubhouse that we've seen, which you saw to a point you can always expect because, it's Clubhouse, but it still would have been nice to see some sort of misdirection utilizing the attacker 6th pick phase, which is exactly what Aqualix did and ultimately left a big difference.
Well, it's time to flip to a break right now. Don't go anywhere there. We have 4 games left in the day. Of course, that next one's going to be Took the Kids. Is that their name? Took the Kids,
Yes.
taking on West Garfield. We'll be back in a few minutes with that matchup.